Hi folks, hope you're okay today. It's good to be with you. I just wanted to make a video because I had one or two things I wanted to share, and I just want to come before the Lord. Lord, thank you for this day and for your love and for your grace, and you would in this video, and I pray that you would use it for your glory and for your honor in your name and for your glory. Amen. I just wanted to expand about the Google Hangout and talk that I had with Alex Porton and talk to you about some of the issues in that Google Hangout philosophically, because I thought probably a lot of people probably didn't understand some of the things I was getting at, even though I kept repeating them. And I just want to make it clear what I was trying to say. He wanted to talk about presuppositional apologetics, and so when he was discussing with me, he was presuming that I was coming at presuppositional apologetics, where say Side 10 Brugengate does presuppositional apologetics. The only presuppositional apologetics that I really enjoy and get a lot out of is principally from Van Til and Greg Banson, especially Greg Banson. And in Greg Banson's lectures, what he would do, he would, and I'm very familiar with this, I've gone over this many times, so I'm very comfortable with this kind of methodology. But what he would do is an internal critique of a person's system. And one of the things he would do is he'd take first principles in your presupposition. So if you a scientific materialist, he would take your materialist presupposition that all there is material, and he'd do critique. Now that's how he would do it. He wouldn't do it the way Satan does it. So that methodology is in my mind now. When Alex was arguing with me, he was arguing thinking that I was going to approach him in debate and discussion on the basis of presuppositional argument, the way Sai and some others do it. And I realize that there's a lot of complex issues that we could talk about. We could talk about infinite regress. We could talk about what Van Til would call ultimate concerns. We could talk about the script position, about all these things, that God's a presupposition and all that. But what I realized is that there is no neutral ground, in the sense that we're all sinners and we all look at evidence from our own particular point of view. That's expressed scientifically with thinkers like Kuhn and Michael Polanyi and people like that. And so we all come with bias. But what really struck me in my studies and thinking the last week or two, what really hit me is that even though all of us, whether atheist or Christian, have bias, we do have the same experiences in reality, however we define that reality. And this got me thinking, and I've been going through the lectures of R.C. Sproul. I've been reading the pre-Socratic philosophers. The lectures are on the history of philosophy. And it began to be apparent as I was reading the pre-Socratic philosophers that they were all looking for patterns in their experience. And I was also reading and thinking about Levi Strauss, an anthropologist, and looking at different religions and noticing that the mythological constructs that people were making was really, they were looking for reason and order within their experience. And I was also reading a PhD on the scientific method, specifically structural realism, and began to realize that, you know, it's about looking for our experiences, looking for reason, structure, and order in our experience. So taking these, it dawned on me that that is something that we all share. We're all looking for this reason. We're all looking for structured understanding of our experiences. Very strong it's very strongly evidential. We can look at so many things to find that we are rational people, that we seek to rationalize our surroundings, to give it order and structure in our experience. Whether we use mythological language, whether we're using scientific language, whether we're using philosophical language. So this was in my mind, this information of reading Levi Strauss, reading the pre-Socratic philosophers, thinking about structural realism and the history and the philosophical basis for the scientific method. These things were in my mind. I got reading a quarter way through God's Undertaker, A Science Burying God by John Lennox. And then things really crystallized in my mind. Things really became very, very clear to me. In this book, there's so much that I could expound. I'll just read this. For some scientists and philosophers, worldview considerations play a role in their antipathy to the idea of a beginning. Engels made a very perceptive comment on the issue at stake. Did God create the world? And externally, the answers which the philosophers gave to this question split them into two camps. Those who asserted the primacy of the spirit to nature, and therefore in the last instance assumed world creation in some form or other, comprised the camp of idealism. The others who regarded nature as primary, belonging to the various schools of materialism. And so, as I'm reading this book, he's talking about numbers are not just are eternal. The idea of numbers is eternal. He talks about that there's rationality in the universe. He goes, Keith Ward strongly supports the view. The continuing conformity of physical particles to precise mathematical relationships is more likely if there is an ordering cosmic mathematician who sets up the correlation in the requisite way. The existence of laws and physics strongly implies that there is a God who formulates such laws and ensures that physical realm conforms to them. And so sorry about this. So, you know, that's Keith Ward. He says, therefore, that's Lennox quoting Keith Ward. He says, theism therefore upholds and makes sense of the rational intelligibility of the universe. Whereas, as we saw earlier, the reductionist thesis undermines it and dissolves it into meaningless. Far from science abolishing God, it would seem that there is a substantial case for asserting that it is the that gives its fundamental intellectual justification. So, let me just put this together. Thinking about Levi Strauss and the way religions are using mythological language to try and give meaning to their experience. Thinking about the pre-Socratics where they're trying to give meaning and rationality to their experience. Thinking about the scientific method, various debates about realism and structural realism, that people are trying to give order to their experience. Thinking about mathematics and its relation to the universe made me realize that right under our noses, rationality is pointing beyond nature, that nature cannot carry the weight. And I repeat this again, but nature cannot carry the weight of rationality. It cannot rationality in itself. And that was powerful for me. It was powerful because it reminded me of Greg Banson when he was doing an internal critique. He touched base on this issue of scientific materialism and the inconsistencies within that method to account for certain things such as rationality. Keith Ward writes, to the majority of those who have reflected deeply and written about the origin and nature of the universe, it has seemed that it points beyond itself to a source which is non-physical and of great intelligence and power. Almost all the great classical philosophers, certainly Plato, Aristotle, Descartes, Leipzig, Spinoza, Kant, Hegel, Locke, and Berkeley, saw the origin of the universe as lying in a transcendent reality. They had different specific ideas of this reality and different ways of approaching it. Versus explanatory, and that it requires some explanation beyond itself, was something that they accepted as fairly obvious. And so the argument that Alex used against me is that intelligent rationality is an emergent property. Now that might be true, generally speaking, in that rationality develops over time in our understanding, meaning that we learn and we grow in our understanding. But and for him, he's saying that that fully answers rationality, but that in no way deals with the sort of big fundamental questions that need to be asked, and need just saying that intelligence and or rationality. I don't want to equivocate on language, so I'll just keep using rationality. Rationality, what I would say rationality is the process or the ability to process our experience through reason. And basically, just trying to think of where I'm up to. Yeah, so for Alex and other people, he regards rationality as an emergent property. It's a reason. It's a development, a growth. But that doesn't answer fundamental questions that need to be answered, or fundamental problems that need to be dealt with and grappled with. It also doesn't do justice to the experience, the holistic, comprehensive experience that we've had and that we have in our lives, throughout our history, our culture, where we're looking for patterns of order in our experience, both religiously, philosophically, and scientifically. Because some fundamental questions which are brought up on that evening is, he admitted that there was a beginning to the universe. Well, how does the beginning give us an indication of why there is rationality? How can non-rationality produce rationality? So there's a fundamental problem in trying to use reason, trying to use nature or our reason to just say it's an emergent property, that's all we need to know. No, how does that work when there's nothing there, when there was no universe? How did rationality come about? It doesn't deal with that question, and nature can't deal with that question. It's too big a question to answer. You know, the second issue is that I have is the transcendental inherentness of logic and numbers, that numbers seem to be, from my perspective, from what I understand, they seem to be concepts that transcend the physical. They can describe the physical, but they're not dependent on the physical. And there are also mathematical formulas within nature. Where did they come from? To say that it is our perception and that these formulas are not inherent within nature is just a dishonesty, because we know that we wouldn't be able to do science unless unless the mathematical formulas that we see within nature, unless they correlate with reality in some way. So again, we're seeing inherent within reality rationality, and again, emergent properties doesn't deal with that. So so I talked about there was a beginning to universe that doesn't explain rationality. I talked about logic is transcendent, so emergent properties doesn't answer rationality. Emergent reason doesn't answer why, before the brain goes through life learning and growing, it is a brain, and that brain is a complex mechanism of highly sophisticated information. And how do you account for that? To say that it's an emergent property doesn't just do justice to the complexity of the brain. It's so complex, we're not even on the tip of the iceberg to understand it. It's so massive, and yet those people who deny there's a God will deny that the brain, the complex mechanism it is not a wonder to behold, to point us to God. Because why? Because they're not recognizing the sheer magnitude of the, and that's why. So I talked about the universe. I talked about my. I, I only mentioned in passing, but what I'm saying is there was a foundation of arguing from experience of what we know in history and philosophy and science. I basically said there was a if there was a nothing, how can we get rationality from nothing? I talked about eternal ideas in numbers, the transcendence of logic, all from things that we know. And that's what I did. Sorry, I'm just tired. So I'll bring now to what I'm trying to say. Basically, presuppositional apologetics is starting with presuppositions. What I did with Alex is I started with his presupposition that everything is material. And I tried to show him that that doesn't do justice to the rationality of the universe. I tried to show him that by showing him, number one, rationality can't come from nothing. So when you're saying that rationality is emergent property, it's not fully answering the bigger issues and the bigger questions. And number two, the eternal state of ideas, the eternal state of numbers. And I'm just trying to think of the other thing that and the transcendence of logic, basically. Um, and that was it, really. The reason why I'm making this video is two things. I don't want presuppositionalists to think that what's he playing at. What I was trying to do is use Greg Banson's method and just do an internal critique of what Alex was saying. And that's it, really. So when you're looking at the universe, when you're looking at your own experience, you're ordering things with your reason. You're trying to make sense of your world. And if you're just part of the evolutionary flow, then you're just a little dot in the universe. You don't mean diddly squat. And your reason is in the midst of that. And on the grand scale, to say that we've evolved and to say that our rationality is emergent property in no way answers the big questions of life concerning reason. I also made an argument from actuality and potentiality, and I used Aristotle. And these are the things that I did with Alex. I'm getting a bit tired now. So the question that I want to put to you is the universe, is it rational? And how does nature explain rationality in that context? And what is the Christian answer? The Christian answer is this rationality can be explained because God is the only sufficient warrant, the only sufficient one who can help us to pontificate and sorry, I'm just a bit tired. I'm really tired now. Sorry about this. I'm just tired. What I'm saying is God is the ground of reason, that nature cannot carry this ground. That as we look at nature, we see rationality all around us in our experience as human beings. And if we just popped into existence from nothing, it means that ultimately reason is just a process going nowhere. It's sound and fury, it means nothing, and will end in nothing. But the Christian position is that we're made in the image of God. The universe was made by a rational God and displays his knowledge. And God gave us a rational mind. And so that's why when we investigate nature, it mirrors nature. Our knowledge mirrors nature, analogically, as Sproul would mention. And that's basically it. And that's all I was trying to argue with Alex. The argument from actuality and potentiality come from Aristotle. I didn't get a chance to expand that, but basically everything has becomes actual. So if you take a seed, there's potential in that seed and it grows to be a tree, an actual tree. But if you strip it back, the potential is now seen as actual, and then within the potential there must be more potential as well as the actual. And as we keep going on and on and on, we come to the end of the potential in the physical, and it moves to the potential in the non-physical, and so pushes us on to God. So the whole of creation basically declares the glory of the Lord. The whole of creation declares rationality. And that rationality cannot be dealt with or answered fully by a scientific materialism. And that's what I was trying to say. And John Lennox's book, The Undertaker, he gives some of these arguments. Okay, I'm really tired. I need some sleep. But that's what I was trying to do last night. That's where I was going. And it only dawned on him near the end that that's what I was trying to do. And that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to use Plato, Aristotle, John Lennox, and Greg Banson. And I hope it was a blessing to you. So I'm sorry I'm a bit tired and just going on a little bit. So I wish you all the best and see you soon. God bless. Take care.